What's the worst thing to wake up to? Someone yelling at you. It can ruin a whole day. A tornado alarm is so scary. Hearing a throwing up noise. Edit. I was probably in the 4th grade at the time. And I was staying the night at my friend's house. Sleepover. I remember being super excited, as her mom went all out and got us junk food to pig out on and movies to rent. We ate a ton of peanut M&Ms. Went to bed. And I woke up to the noise first and then the smell hit me. Peanuts. Chocolate. Doritos. And the vomit smell. She had one of those day beds and I was on the pull-out bottom. I do not know how she missed me. Or how I didn't step in any of it on my way out the room to get her mom. There was a spot at the top of my head and the bottom of my feet and all over her bed. Her mom asked me, "Do you want to go home?" Yes. I'll call my mom. Took me a long time to eat peanut M&Ms. Edits. Wow. Thanks for all the rewards. It's a first. Thank you. The end of that dream where you really need a pee. And start to feel the satisfaction of warming release. Your dog gagging and about to throw up in the middle of night. Then hearing him eating it 15 seconds later. Got woken up by my dad early in the morning to inform me that my mother had passed away in the room across the hall from me. Worst part was that she was only sleeping there to look after a pup that was recently born from the 2 dogs we had at the time. Otherwise my dad might have woken up and been able to do something about it. The pup ended up crying late at night before or during her heart failure that I ended up passing off as it's really not that uncommon, but it really makes me question if I could have done something or not to help her before it happened. Think about it regularly. Calling work and breaking down to my boss wasn't great either. But hey. Day. Waking up to 30+ missed calls with a brutal hangover and can't remember what you did last night but you know it wasn't good. Panic. I was babysitting my niece one time when she was about 4. I packed her off to bed and went to watch a movie on the couch, where I promptly dozed off, only to be woken a few hours later in complete darkness, having no idea where I was, and with a tiny, clammy little demon hand grabbing at my ankle. I've never been awake faster in my life, only to be greeted by a very confused child who just wanted a story and who no one had seen fit to tell me could get over the baby gate like a goddamn ninja. We don't tell her mother about the time Aunt Hazel almost kicked her darling daughter through a window. One I woke up to find my dog had diarrhea everywhere. Large puddle on the floor and also in between the side of my bed and the wall. It was completely inside the outlet. I literally had to shut off the electricity and rewire a new outlet that day. Sunlight. I work the early morning shift and I'm already driving to work before the sun even comes up. A couple of times my phone has ended up under my pillow and I've missed my alarm only to wake up to the sun glaring in my eyes. That sudden feeling of up always sucks. Fever. Sore throat. Shortness of breath. Hey you're finally awake. Bacon cooking on a George Foreman next to your bed. Forgetting you set it there and then stepping on it hurts like. A severe lack of oxygen. A few years back I was riding my bike home from work on a Friday night and crashed while trying to avoid some guy cutting a corner. Ambulance rocked up and took me to the hospital. Lots of scratches, scrapes and bruises, and a broken collarbone. They kick me out after a few hours and just before I get out they give me a small pack of codeine tablets. I asked them at the time to give me tramadol instead as codeine makes me nauseous, but they refused and told me to go see my GP if I wanted something different. It being Friday night my GP wasn't going to be open again till Monday morning. I went home and the pain was bad enough that I ended up going and taking the codeine over the course of the weekend. The last dose of which I took about 9 p.m. Sunday night. Monday morning rolls around and I immediately call my GP and book an appointment so I can get some tramadol. While I'm there talking to him, he warns me, make sure you wait at least 24 hours from taking the last dose of codeine before you take any tramadol as the two of them together could stop you breathing. Duly noted, says I. That night I stayed up quite late watching on YouTube etc. and made myself stay awake till about 3 a.m. and took some tramadol just before I went to bed so that I could get a decent night's sleep. Apparently I didn't wait long enough. I don't know what time of night it was and hence how long it took. All I remember is shooting awake and feeling like I couldn't get enough breath into my lungs. I gasped and gasped and gasped and eventually managed to start feeling human again. But it's still one of the most terrifying wake-ups I've ever had. Your clothes. Bedsheets. Bed stained with period blood. At 5 years old, opening your eyes only to see that you're on the front porch. In your mother's arms. And an ambulance pulling up into the driveway. I stared at it. And passed out again a few seconds later. I woke up late the next day. Turns out I had a severe epileptic seizure. Scary. Yourself as a student in underwear. In front of the entire second grade. And everyone is laughing at you. Death. 2 years ago. I woke up to my parents crying as they were informed that my grandfather had passed away. We packed in 30 minutes and took the first flight out for my grandfather's funeral. It still haunts me to this day. Your partner. Who died in their sleep next to you. 2 a.m. smoke detector battery chirp. And you have 7 smoke detectors on 10-foot high ceilings, so you have to get a goddamn ladder out of the garage at 2 a.m. in the morning. Change your batteries on a schedule to avoid that. A full bladder. Then I'll have to get up to use the bathroom instead of going back to sleep. Well, the sad answer I can give to this one would be my mother walking into the room to tell me my dad is having a stroke. And that I would have to help the paramedics when they arrived. As for a slightly less downbeat story. Last summer. I felt something moving down my face. Like a bead of sweat. It kept moving down it. Though. So I went to sweep it away. But then I heard this buzzing sound. It shook me. And my eyes opened moments later. I looked down on the bed. And saw a bumblebee on the bed. I should probably add. I don't necessarily hate bees. But I don't like being in the same room as anything that buzzes. Mainly because it's the noise that gets to me. Considering the only thing separating me and the bee were some bed sheets. I got out of there quick as and told my mother what was going on. I had a nightmare where I was covered in ants. I woke up and was relieved that it was just a dream. Then I realized I was actually covered in ants. Woke up to 3 firemen banging on my door to my apartment room. Hoped out of my bed into a pool of water. Instantly realized what was going on and ran into my bathroom to turn off the tub and sink. Opened the door to those firemen and my roommate with his hands over his head and looked around to see my apartment flooded. I slept, walked and turned on the bath and my sink. The hard surface of a carriage seat. Rope binding your hand. And a Nord exclaiming that you're finally awake. #### call from your teacher. Wondering where you are for your final state-run exam in high school. Abitur. Well, something like that. Czech version of it. There is only one set date. Statewide. And if you miss it, you have to repeat it in September, and there's almost a certainty you won't make it to university in the same year. About an hour after it's officially finished. People from education ministry come pick up the papers and then there's nothing you can do about it. I was woken up by the call from my teacher. Wondering where I was. At the time it was starting. The thing is, my high school was about 45 minutes from my home. I rushed in. Finished the missing part after every other student went home due to being teacher's favorite. For once it paid off, and saw the people from ministry getting to the building just when I was leaving. I was just in my way to buy a huge bouquet for my teacher. I graduated with honors. Here we are. 7 years later and I still have the lightest of sleeps when there's anything important coming up in the morning. I always enjoy putting my arm around my fiancée when I wake up in the morning. I woke up one morning after having a dream about her and moved my arm to put it around her. And she wasn't there, she was out of town on business. The feeling of contentment and happiness turned to disappointment instantly. Screaming. Just over a year ago. I woke up at 3 in the morning to my little sister doing the most horrifying screams. Blood-curdling. Pure agony screams. I suffer from PTSD from many traumatic events in my life. One of them being rape. So naturally, I assumed the worst. I jumped out of bed and tugged on the nearest pair of pants as fast as I could. My jump-started brain telling me there's no way I could fend off a rapist being half naked. And threw open the door in probably the fastest way I've ever moved. But what felt like eons to me. I was absolutely prepared to kill a man with my bare hands to save my sister. I was met with my Nana at the door, who told me that they had just told her childhood pet and most loved animal in the entire world of 11 full years had been rushed to the hospital and didn't make it. The crash as the adrenaline left me made me nauseous. I'm grateful my sister wasn't harmed, but I can still hear her screaming in my mind and I don't sleep declothed very often anymore. So I'd say that was the worst way I've ever been woken up and I don't want to experience it again.